Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next live stream. I'll be your producer for this session. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you for joining.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Todd Toller. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. I work in what's called our Tech Success Developer Productivity Team. And this is a group that primarily focuses on GitHub all day. We do a few other developer productivity tools, but 95% of our day is GitHub, and some large percentage of that is GitHub Copilot. So today we want to talk about prompt optimization and really how to prompt smarter and ship more, and give you kind of the next level on some of the token optimization pieces that have been going on since the usage-based billing change in early June 1st, just a couple weeks ago. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome. I appreciate you being here. We all appreciate you being here. It's really great to see everybody. So just to kind of, one promise for this is a working session. We'll have some demos, or a little bit of, it'll be a little less demo heavy, but a little bit of kind of understanding how this all works. We'll show some of it, in process here. So over the next hour, you're going to watch me take real prompts apart and kind of try to rebuild them alive. We'll strip them with this clear framework that we're going to introduce here, and then prove the gains with a tool that is called Kates, which turns kind of into a reusable command that shows how a team can share them, etc. So the whole thing is really based off of one sentence: get more out of less. It's really kind of in the post-COVID world has become a huge mantra for a lot of people, and so we're going to do that together, and then let me show you why that's worth the next hour or so. So we're going to get more out of less together. You see that again. This is going to, it's a great thing to remember. It's a huge piece of what we do, of what everybody's been doing, like I said, post-COVID. So here's the shape of the day in one line. It's one move at 3 different scales. You strip the prompt. That's a framework that we're going to use called Clear. You compose the system of small prompts wired together instead of just one giant one, and then you share them with the team. So a library that we're going to try to work on, try to get to that too. So the 4 outcomes, you see them there at the side. We're going to try to leave with a 30-day plan and get through everything. Artifacts, not just ideas. So we're going to get to the first one. You can see this says for 2 hours. It's condensed down into 1 hour. That's fine. There was a lot of stuff that we will go through, but I used the wrong deck. So we'll prove we're going to prove here in a minute just that most of the prompt is waste. We're going to learn the Clear framework in a few minutes, and then run a couple demos back to back. We'll strip some prompts out. One of those from potentially from the chat, or some of the audits that we have. We'll audit and prove one with Kates, and then build and share a reusable command. So we'll close on that composition. That's a big piece. The advanced patterns, and then a 30-day plan of what you can do if we have time. And so we'll drop. We'll see if we can get some of the worst prompts that people have, and start to work through ways, things that we see in the field, in the real world. So the first case here is, before we do anything, is kind of, why does this matter, right? Why do you see this as, why do you need to spend the time on this? And I think a lot of it, a lot of people are probably aware, but the shift into usage-based billing has changed the focus from token, just using tokens and using premium request units, to how many, to maximizing how much you can get out of each token. I'm not going to dwell on the idea of token maxing or anything like that. I tend to try to stay away from those kind of things. Just it's it's the buzzword of the time, but that's what we're going to try to make sure that we get the most out of every token that we use. And before any framework here, I want you to believe one thing in your gut: that prompt waste is real, it's measurable, and it's yours to fix. So most people treat prompt writing like a soft skill that doesn't show up anywhere, but it shows up in context windows and your latency, how long it takes to do this, and then how much you have to reprompt. So we're going to put a number on it and start to so as you can see, 70%, 60 to 70% is what we've seen of always loaded tokens are waste. There's a lot of folks that are using AI generated Copilot instructions or instructions across the organization that those get loaded every single time, and they're super verbose. When it was PRUs, when you didn't have the tokens, that was okay. It was tended to be all right. But now we can we need to be more focused with what we're doing and how we're using those tokens. And so studies of enterprise prompts keep finding that the same thing, like I said, 60 to 70% of the tokens carry no information that changes the model's answer. And so there's a lot of courtesies, hedges, filler, duplicated rules that and that's kind of the headline of this entire workshop, what we're trying to do. So after one cleanup pass, a typical team's always loaded instructions drop from about 14,000 tokens to 5,500. So one clear rewrite cuts input tokens by about 56% and gets your first token back about 41% faster. And so these are real changes that can make not only are you going to save money or save organization, if you don't care about that, it's going to save you time. And if you have to continuously run through reprompting and doing all this information for your prompts, you're wasting a lot of time. So it's all just a tax on top of what you're doing. So it's something that you want to keep in mind while you're building this. So the mindset shift that you have here is that quality per token is the metric. That's what you want to look at. Token count is just the first place you see it. A prompt you had to send twice is the same tokens, right? So with no new information, it's purely a tax, right? It's kind of the tax that you're getting because you didn't write the right prompt the first time. And so how do you actually cut the waste without losing that signal? That's what this framework is. So you can see we're going to get into into the clear framework. So here, this is where you believe less wins. I understand that. So like here's the tool that gets you there on a single prompt. So it's called clear. It's 5 moves, and once they're muscle memory, you'll do them without thinking. So this is kind of the the strip out what you had at the prompt scale, the daily habit that everything else is built on. So you want to remember these. So you see this is clear, 5 blocks, 1 framework, snap them together, however you see fit. You want to use, you're not going to use everyone. It's just, just realistically, think of them as kind of, like I said, snap together bricks. That's what we're trying to show on the screen here a little bit. So they don't always use all 5, but every decent prompt and every, optimized prompt uses some of them right together. So you don't have to use them all. It's just not realistic, especially at the beginning, but something to think about. So here's my one ask: use these for a month every day until you delete the word please, and automatically master the basics first. The advanced patterns later on in this session will only pay off once this is reflexive in your thinking, that it's become part of your muscle memory. So it's important. It's important to think about. It's important to deal with. As you can see, input tokens. You can lose about 56% just off of 1 clear pass, and that 41% faster time to first token is really important. So, there's more reuse when prompts live in your /prompts folder. So it's something that you want to, we'll get into. I'll get into what each of these numbers are on the next slide, I promise, or what each of these letters are. So, look at this as we go. So we've got C, constraint, right? So you can obviously understand what constraint is, but that's really what we're saying is to cap it, right? If you don't cap the shape, the model caps it for you, and that's wrong, right? That's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that everything's really strong. So constrain what you're doing. Make sure you understand it and you write things. So then we move on to the L. So that's lean. Cut the courtesy, the hedges, the filler. all the different pieces, delete those. You don't need that. I think there was some comment from Sam Altman that they're spending, multiple millions of dollars just because people say please. It's not necessary. You're not going to get brownie points from the AI because you said please or thank you. So we want to cut those out, especially now with that token being more costly for your organization. So the model has no feelings. It has a context window. Remember that. So as you're typing, and that's a huge change, and I think it's going to change society over time as we start to think about it. So let's let's build that into our prompts. E is be explicit. So that's we're right there in the middle. This is one of my favorite ones. So name 3 things: the role, the task, and what good looks like. Vague in. If you're vague on the input there, you're going to get vague out, or you're going to get all these different directions potentially from your model and from the prompt that you put in. So make sure that you're very explicit about what you're doing. A is architected. So you want to give it some visible structure, headings, lists, some fence blocks. The model fills the shape for you. So the model fills the shape you draw. So, draw the shape, tell it what you want, how you want it, exactly how you want it. You don't have to fill in all the little details, but give it the structure, give it that paved path that, tells it how you get from point A to point B and what you're looking for. And then it'll fill in all the, it's going to drive the path. You don't need to drive it for it, but it'll drive you there. So tell it how to get there. And then R is for reusable. So you want to, parameterize the specifics and promote your winners into a shared file. So somewhere in your organization that they can tend to. So, the mnemonic, I can never say that word. Say it like a chant, kind of cap it, lose it, explain it, architect it, and reuse it. That's straight. That's exactly what we're going to try to do here. And so that's what the clear functionality is. That's what the clear framework is. So keep like you see at the bottom there, the 20-second test. Teach it to a teammate, or you can trim it off, right? That's how you're going to do it. You want to make sure that you continuously are updating your understanding of the optimizations and how this optimization works, but also how it all ties together, and use these together. So we'll get on to the next slide here, a couple of slides. So we're going to look through kind of what changed. I'm not going to dive into that part area, but if we, one of the things that we looked at is every one of those wins came from a single clear letter. So, we're looking. This is something that we did with, with our demo, or not with our demo, with our some of our examples, and you see, that PR descriptions, code reviews, all these things can be, dropped down and made much more efficient. And that's the goal of today, and that's what we're trying to get to. So we'll get into a little bit of the demo in a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of show each win came from one of the clear letters. You'll see around 30% reduction in re-asks, which is that's just cutting the back and forth. It's cutting your time. You get an answer quicker. You get better answers. That's really the goal there, is to get the better answer. It's not so much about cost optimization, because cost optimization doesn't get you where you want to go. Cost optimization is gonna is going to lead you to worse outcomes, which is going to end up costing you more. But building, understanding these kind of situations, will help you get from point A to point B quicker and get you there, cheaper, and everything else. Just naturally going to be cheaper in that regard. And so, a great opportunity to strip out a lot of what's going on. If it doesn't matter, if it doesn't help move the model forward, it's not something that you need to worry about too much. And so, like I said, I'll drop into a little bit of this in a few minutes. And so now I'm going to drop in some of what we do. So I'm going to take a deliberately messy prompt here in just a moment, and we'll audit it on screen. We'll score it with the clear rubric, fix the worst letter. Then we're going to run this methodology, this analyzer that we've created called CATES. That's the coding agent token economy standard, coding agent token economic standard. That's what. So the machine scores back your human response, and then it'll show how it goes. So I'll explain what these rules are, what the rule sets look like, and how you can use that. And you can even use this as a CI gate and some of the other pieces that are really strong to help you build in your environment and use some of these principles and build that into your workflow, into your stream, into the stream of what you're doing. So the takeaway here is that an audit is a 3-minute habit, and the gate makes it automatic, right? So you can just build it in. I think we'll share that link in a little bit. So you can see this is the clear rubric. Again, we're at it. This scorecard is what an audit produces. 1 to 5 letters, 25 possible. You can figure out all the different pieces. I'll show that in just a moment when we get into some of but a typical pre-clear prompt scores around 8 of those. And after one rewrite, we've seen about 23. And so just a little bit of just a little bit of work gets you so much more efficiency. Like I said, like it shows, about 60% tokens cut on the rewritten version. 10 minutes per prompt, and that's where the reusability even saves you more and more and more as you go forward. And so I'm gonna have you watch me do this do exactly this on the full screen here. So you should see let me get my notes up here on the other side here. Okay. And so you should see here we go, a PR. You should see my screen here. You should see Octocat, which is a deliberately, get you a little bit here. So I've got a number of pieces here built in, and I've got actually, yep, okay. And so I'm going to put let's go here. I'm going to put it into my window. And so, I've got it's intentionally, not such a great prompt. This is, you can kind of see, let's look at it with the clear mnemonic. Here's I'm adding the diff. It's just so you see it. So, hi, below, when you get a chance, could you please take a look at the diff below and write up a nice description for the pull request, something that explains, what we're doing and why. Make it readable, but also comprehensive. Thanks so much. Here's the diff. So you can see where a lot of this is going on. So like, really, none of this until the first, maybe take a look, has done anything, right? These are a bunch of words that have done nothing. So we cut those out, and we can think of ways. There's a bunch of different ways to make that stronger, but we can cut these out. Those are words that don't make sense. They don't add any value to it. Write up a nice description. Okay, what's a nice description? Is that an operative word? Is it actually doing anything? Nice is very vague, right? So we want to be explicit with that. Something that explains what we're doing and why. Again, pretty vague. It doesn't really make it readable, but also comprehensive. Okay, that's a little better. Thanks so much. Unnecessary. And so you can see, this is the diff below. It's all just a diff of the sessions. You could just point it to a PR as well for your, for your organization or whatever, however you want to do it. And so let's take a look. So I think like I said, deleting. Hi, when you get a chance, could you please? That's boom, 9 tokens gone, just right off the top. Adding role, if you want to add the role senior reviewer. So that's a better answer. That's going to be E, that's explicit, being more explicit. It's going to be 4 tokens. So, you're already saving 5 tokens just right off the top. Adding a summary. And so, changes, rest block. So that's A plus C. So it's, it bounds the output. So what you're going to get is much more narrow. It's much better. It's where you want it rather than, I'll just give this to me, in a certain place. So that's, A and C bounded in the same spot. And so we're replacing here's the diff with, R. So that now it's a slash command. So let me show you the full, how we're going to do that. So actually, let me go. I'm actually going to, I should have ran that while I was talking there, but sorry about that. So we'll run that and see, kind of the difference here. It should show me some of the things, but I don't want it to run my GitHub. So it's optimizing tool selection, bam, 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 bam. So you should start to see, look at the diff below, should start to see some answers here in just a moment. Okay, so it's given me some information. It's still building all of that. Okay, the changes are reducing, da 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 da. And so we should see, a bunch of things. So we see, it's pretty good, but that's a lot of, there's a lot of waste in that, like we talked about just a minute ago. So let's, in that time, it took what I should say, it took like 30 seconds for it to go through. We should see that much quicker now. So let's just put that, instead it's the same diff, bam, just put so now I've got, role. Yeah, let me cut some of this stuff out. This is extra tokens that it pasted kind of funky, but that's all right. So you should see role, senior reviewer, right? So you see that, the task, write a PR description from the diff below, boom, output, markdown in this order, summary, changes in risk. So we're giving it, that bound, and it's gonna, it's gonna build it. So this should go much quicker. Should go quicker, but it's also gonna serve, less tokens overall. You can see, okay, shortened session lifetime to a 15-minute remote server exploit, boom. So the response here, these output tokens,
Todd?
so boom, you saw that was, 0.9 credits versus, 1 credit. So it's not a ton, but we've got a much quicker response. So we were able to get that going on. But you repeat that across your organization, you repeat that 1,000 times across your organization, and you're going to save a lot of tokens. And this is very, pretty much basic type stuff. So we wanted to, kind of look into it, how it's going to do. So like you said, it's, about, the output tokens used to be about 280. Now it's about 80. This is 280 tokens. If you remember from one of our sessions that we did on the reactor a couple of weeks ago, the most expensive tokens are output tokens. So this costs you more money than this, and it basically tells you the same thing. It just needed to see what, we just needed to define what it is. So we have all this rationale, all this exploration, validation, cleanup, things that aren't really moving the needle for us. So we wanted to make sure that it's, very strong, very ready to go. And so you can see, smaller, this moves the needle much faster. So let's go again and let's look at, let's clear. So I'm gonna clear that. I think it's /clear, right? Boom. Okay. Here's another one that we're going to look at that we've got. I'm pulling code from over here just so I can have. Okay. Please look at this code carefully and let me know what you think. Are there any issues? Anything I should change? Any best practices I'm missing? And so let me get, it's a basic, just a basic import. Nothing, nothing crazy here, but you can see, so how does this work? How do we think about it? So this, please look at this code carefully. So I can obviously tell you, obviously we don't need please, and look at this code carefully. What does carefully actually mean? Let me know what you think. It's a little bit of an interesting scenario there, but so we have E. We want to add the role to it. And so you can see, I've got a response. Okay, 3.2 credits. These are AI credits. So what? That's like 32 cents, something like that, or maybe three. I don't remember. It's not, not very much. It doesn't cost a ton, but so we got a response. We got a response pretty quickly. That's pretty good, but we can take a number of. I hear somebody maybe came off mute. If we could go back on mute, that'd be great.
Pod, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple requests to maximize the font in that window.
Okay. Is that better?
Awesome, thanks.
Sorry, it's on a big screen over here, so I can see it. But yeah, okay. So I'll go back over what we did there, just so you can see it. This was, look at this code carefully. Please look at this code carefully. Let me know what you think. Are there any issues? Anything I should change? Any best practices I'm missing? So we ran that, and it's going to tell me, it's told me what some of that looks like. A couple of best practices improvements, but I'm going to take the same. The same session there, the same, the same prompt, and move that over here. So we're gonna, for some reason it's not. I need to fix that in my script, but it's not coming over very well. So you can see it's not pasting very well. I got to fix that, and what I'm copying and pasting from is what I'm talking about. But same code, so I'm not touching the code. I'm just adding some things here. So E, that's the role and task in 2 lines. C, we have it capped to 3 and 3. A ranked, it's ranked with severities. Now I can act on it, so I have something that I can do. Give me these severity, high, medium, low, and a 1-line rationale. I don't want this big long, I don't want this big long explanation of what we need to do. We need to have just what we need. AI, LLMs in general can be very verbose. The verbosity level is very high, and so we want to make sure that that's that you have that information. But you can see now I'm just going to do the same thing. Boom. We should get a response back rather quickly. Before it took us, with GPT-5.4 Mini, 3.2 credits. Hopefully, I should actually probably choose the same. I should probably turn off auto model because I have auto mode in place, so it used the same one. Luckily, we saved a little bit of credits again. Like I said, as we go across, as we go across thousands of people, that's a big difference. But what we don't have to do is, our response before has a pretty high level of output credits or output tokens, but maybe it doesn't quite answer all the issues that we're looking for. It returned back it returned back a few different risks, a couple of best practices. So we have all of these extra information. Now we're so I got the top 3 improvements, the top 3 risks, and suggested test use cases. So I've got exactly what I needed. I don't have to go back and ask for more, et cetera, et cetera. So we're starting to see the number 1 risk is the should be SQL injection. Yep. So the number one risk there, string concatenation execute. So it's giving me exactly, it's actionable items that I can take based on what what their scale is, what their risk is at that. So great. That helps us understand a lot. Okay, and so now I'm going to show one that doesn't always, it follows that, but it follows the process. But I'm just going to show, this is just a random email from some higher up, some VP in your organization. We've been on the growth plan. So okay, but I'm asking it to, can you summarize this email for me, please? That's great. It tells me what, I'm telling it was what we wanted to do, but it's pretty vague. So we'll see what it does here in just a moment. Dana says Northwest, da, 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 da. So I was able to see all this information, but I didn't get, now I have to read just a smaller version of the same thing. I just spent a bunch of credits, not a bunch, but a number of credits to be able to, to basically tell me, to save me, 4 or 5 seconds. That doesn't tell me a whole lot. So, but if I'm spending credits, I should be able to, take those credits and have some value associated with it, right? And so it makes sense, to kind of give it the direction that you want. So I'm actually going to make my prompt longer. I'm going to input more to try and not have to, to try and make this an actual summary. So again, my tasks are not, or my paste is not working quite like I wanted it to, but this is what happens sometimes on live, live streams, but that's all right. So I've given it, the before line was 1 sentence. This after line is 6, right? So, bigger is sometimes better. So when these extra lines are structured, they're not fluff, right? So that makes it more sense, that we want to make sure that they're what we need to do. Sometimes, like I said, bigger is better in this regard. And so, afterwards, we should be able to see kind of, some more information about it, summarize the email for a product manager. So you see, this is, very specific. It's explicit, what we need to do. Maybe I'm a product manager. Maybe I'm a developer. You can change that to developer. What is this person looking for? How do we get this part? How do we figure out what their sentiment is? What, is it positive? Is it neutral? Is it negative? I wasn't getting that. I'm not getting that in this, in this area here. So I would have to either ask, is this sentiment there? What does the sentiment look like, etc. So I'm going to the same email. Let's figure out what's going on with, see if we can get a better response doing this. So 1-line summary. Dana is unhappy about a missed refund after a double billing session. And we also, we use the same amount of credits, 0.4 credits. You can see down here at the bottom in case you're looking for it, playing along at home. It's warning about the renewal and vendor evaluation are now at risk. Okay, great. So now we've got, this is easy to read. This is simple. Now I can think about this from a, from what we saw. So, they're asking for a refund and urgent and credit. Urgency is high. Renewals in 3 weeks. There's, big churn risk. There's 2 to 3 action items, or there are actually 4 in this one. But, we got a nice, easy to understand view of what's going on, what they're doing. And so I'll go ahead and jump back into the slides for a moment here. Boom. Okay, so that's where we were. So you can see that's a lot, it's a lot of things, but I've got a sample pack and I'll share those at some point. I'll put them, on a live, so we have, but we got a, you know what a sample, or what a real messy prompt looks like. We've all seen them. We all start with those. We, I guess in theory should start with those. That's that's kind of the way that we we do it as engineers, right? So we're going to start with a messy prompt. We will we're going to score it live here with the clear rubric, and I'll show you kind of how we go. So and how we can test that. Let me get to. That's the wrong one. Let me go back. And so you can see we're going to run this Kate's analyzer. I think the repo has been shared. If not, we'll share it in just a moment. It's Microsoft. It's a Microsoft GitHub repo called Kate's Coding Agent Token Economic Standard. We'll run through kind of how some of the have it explain what some of the findings are, what the what the actual outputs are, and show the before and after, fewer tokens, tighter input, and then this CI gate as well, something that we'll talk about. And then it's like I said, this is the biggest takeaway: is that the audit is a 3-minute habit. It's not a project. It's not something that you have to build in to your muscle memory. We're just going to run this scan so that we can start to understand it. And so let me go to another over here. So again, got to zoom in here for you. Sorry if it's not super terminal, but so this is going to be a little bit tight because it's so big, but I can, whoops. Oh, that's why. Okay, I already had it up. Okay, and so I've got a number of prompts in here, and I'm going to show them to you before we actually, let's close this out. So you can see I've got code review prompt. I've got a extract entities prompt, PR description prompt, and summarize email prompt, as well as pretty short Copilot instructions. This is what my Copilot instructions looked like before. Always be extremely thorough and comprehensive in every single response you ever produce. No matter how small the question is, I always explain all this information doesn't really help. So we'll go through, show you, first of all, let's show the Kate's analyzer in process here, how it works. Let me close this out so you can kind of see. Okay, so I ran this against our folder. You can see we're actually getting a pretty good score because there's 82 out of 100. I wouldn't quite make my 85 gate if I had this set as a CI, but that's pretty good. So you can see the top risk executive summary, we've got boom, no system prompt protection detected. Instructions could be extracted via social engineering, etc. Biggest token reduction, add missing instruction topics. I'll get into that in a minute. So files discovered, there are 5 config files, 475 total tokens in active configs, and 62 tokens always loaded. So that's pretty good. We'll get into another one in just a minute. I'll run it against that Octocat supply that we had, which is intentionally kind of bad. So it's important, but I just want to show you what it looks like. This is sort of, here's where, what the coverage is. This coding economics standard, goes through Claude, Cursor, Gemini, all the different MCP configs, hooks, set up. So it's not just a Microsoft or GitHub based standard. It's all standards put in one. So it uses similar tokenizers and stuff, but it's trying to get pretty close to what it can, what you can do. And so direct, you see the token reduction opportunity. Here's the scores for each dimension of the Kate's delivery, or the Kate's standard itself, what it's actually trying to pull. So you can see I've got completeness issues, security, a little bit of security issues, and some harness quality issues that we will talk about. And then 14 medium and 2 lows, and then this token reduction opportunity. And so we see that this is what it does. So this is a scanner. It tells me exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm going to run that against my this one. I'll run that against here. So we'll close this guy out, and we will put the boom, boom, boom. Okay. Here. Okay. So now we should see this on my okay. Well, and so you can see, just so you know, this doesn't use tokens. This Kate's analyzer is all local heuristics. So you're good. It's not gonna, you're not using tokens to save tokens. That seems kind of meta. So you don't want to. We didn't want to do that with it. But so you can see now I've got, okay, this is one that's not very good, right? And it's kind of intentionally that way. This is one that we use for demos. So there's a lot of duplication across our files. But I wanted to show generally what it looks like. So you can see we've got the top risk is TE006, near duplicate content. Okay. Waste both tokens. So let's remember TE006 in just a moment. I'm going to actually use the tool to tell me what that's all about. We can see, we've gone through all this. Okay, I've got, projected savings of 16.5% of those tokens. 16.5% is pretty good. It's a pretty good savings. It's, if you repeat that across, a repo in your organization for the next 6 months, that's a lot of money, right? It's going to save a fair amount of money. You can even get more in a lot of cases. We have 16 highs, 56 mediums, and 9 lows. This organization. Here's all the top files. So, like I said, I'm going to remember this TE006. But okay, so we've got a number of potential security issues. A lot of TE006 recommendations by priority. Found 8 near duplicate content blocks, et cetera, et cetera. So let's look into. It's given me a bunch of ideas about what to do. I want you to know this is not, this is not going to, this is not going to do anything for you necessarily. It's just going to show you where you could potentially make some changes. And so, Kate's analyzer, boom, boom, boom. Explain. That was TE006. Okay. So now it's going to give me a little bit more information about TE006. What is TE006? It doesn't mean anything to me off the top of my head, like what is it actually standing for? But okay, now we can kind of see it's TE probably stands for token efficiency. So that's the dimension that it covers. The severity is high. What section is it involved in? So you can look back at the standard. That's all in the repo if you're looking for it. And then we're going to be able to compare normalized multi-line paragraphs across files. So it's running to see, if are they duplicated? Are you using tools that are duplicating the same? So there's a lot of people, just in their day-to-day work are using duplicated blocks in their prompts, duplicated blocks, things that are in their instructions file that they're now calling in a prompt, or they're calling with a skill, etc. And so finding those is not simple. This gives you a scanner to be able to do that. So let me find a prompt. So okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show this here in just a moment. Oops, okay, there we go. And so I've got, let me see, let me make sure I'm on the right. One prompt all the way through, demo 2, approve, okay. Actually, yep, I need to go back to my slides here. I'll go to my slides and then I'll come back. I think. Yep, okay. And so compose it, right? So the keystone here, this is the instinct that we're trying to unlearn, right? So when a task gets complicated, people write one big prompt, another paragraph, another rule. So until that is, until it's an 800 token monster that does 5 things and breaks whenever you touch it, it's just not sustainable, right? And so we've kind of had this bad mentality, this bad opportunity, not to say opportunity, but this bad, this bad habit running through and just building and building and building upon it. And so, we want to make sure that, that you can touch it. You can work with these things. Need to be updated. Your code changes constantly. So should your prompts. So should your files. So should your, your instructions files. All the different pieces that you're going to tie to it should all tie. Should all be updated constantly. I think we use it in our optimizations, the earlier session that we talked about, that basically 56% or not 56, but they take out, the Copilot CLI team just scraps all of their instructions files, all of their, skills and their prompts and things every 3 months. And that's because they know that there's a lot of bloat in there and they're going to add to it. And so they don't want to have that built into their process. And so they restart every time. They just, you need to be able to get rid of context, get rid of some of these things. We're not pack rats, right? We don't want to store all this information in there. So we need to build that out there. So here are some advanced patterns that we can follow. As I think we're going to, we're getting a little closer to the end here, but some advanced patterns that we want to. The trained instinct is the opposite. So when a task gets big, you want to make the prompts smaller, more, and wire them together. So you want to build, think of it like microservices for prompts, right? So you can see the different pieces here. There's a different ways to tie all of this together and build, kind of compose a story with multiple different pieces, building blocks, rather than having one big massive prompt. And so watch the bars. Quality compounds as you stack them, as you stack clean moves. Composition is it's the keystone that the rest lean on, right? And so the honest thing here is it earns trust, right? So this is don't do this on day one. Don't do it to a tidy 120 token prompt. You don't want to, it's not much information. You're not going to save much there. Reach for composition when a prompt is over, 500 tokens, something along that. Does 3 or more distinct things and stays brittle even after we apply clear to it. Sophistication you don't need. It's just a different kind of waste. And so you want to find those things and start building, kind of finding the areas that you can build, build upon those patterns and what those keystones are. So we have seven patterns here. Yeah, probably kind of 7, but read. So the idea here is, composition is one that pays off on all 4 axes, right? So the other 6 plug into a compose step. So, we don't want to talk about all, we don't want to go through all of these necessarily, but think of this, what few shot is. 2 to 3 examples beat 200 words, right? Do this, do that. Here's what we want. Boom, boom, boom. Be exact with it. Try to be explicit as much as possible. Name them. Point, what we want to do. So tell them, this is the part, so this is the part that matters right here. So this is the how to use them slide. And let me get to, oops, sorry. Okay, getting my notes back up here. Okay, when to read, there we go. And so, the mega prompt that everyone writes first, around 800 instruction tokens, you don't want, or 800 tokens, input tokens, it's every rule. I want to, we want to clean those up. So, the honest composing isn't automatically fewer total tokens. You pass the email into several steps. It wins on bounded contracts, some of the model routing that you're going to use, reuse, and then fewer retries. So under about 500 tokens and 3 jobs, have the prompt, leave the prompt whole, right? You just want to build that. Sophistication is, it's just a, like I said, a fancier kind of waste. Few shot contracts, some of the different compose, share, negative, and critique. So critique is one that I found recently that has been, I don't know about recently, but that I've been using a lot more recently. Have it check itself. You can have it check to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is this? What is this answer, right? Build that into your process. That'll save you from, it seems like it's going to add a little bit up front, but it's going to save you a lot at the end of the day, because what you're going to do is you're not going to be having these extra turns. You're not going to have all these different building blocks. So when to use them and when to do it. Like I said, roles is another one. I'm a product manager. Tell me this. You want to use that when their tone or depth is consistently off, when things are just wrong. Contracts, you're wiring compose steps together, so you want to build that, build all those together. You want to build, when you want to build those together. And then negatives, if the modern, if the the model has a stubborn wrong default, you can point it to not do certain things. Don't check for this, don't check for that. And so, okay, let me get back to one more piece here. And so I'm gonna go back in here. Let's clear this. Okay, and then I'm just going to use this. So this is we had an incident last night, kind of a big one. The database started throwing connection errors around 2 a.m. and it took us about 40 minutes to figure out it was the connection pool exhaustion issue we've been worried about. The on-call engineer did a good job, but the runbook was out of date. Customers were impacted for about 25 minutes. So you can see, this total right now. So this is, this is basically looking at the, the clear rubric that we talked about earlier, the different, the cap it, lose it, explain it, architect it, and then reuse it. All those pieces, if we look at this one here, we're going to kind of, look to see 1 to 5 per letter. So this total, this translates to about 8 out of 25. So it has 8. It scores an 8 on the process there. It's not very in depth, not very good. But if we end up using something like this, actually, I will. Again, my notes are not translating well. I don't know why. Must be because I'm coming from Obsidian. And if you haven't noticed, I'm a Microsoft engineer using a Mac. That probably always helps out too. So, role, I'm able to take that down. Boom. Okay, so we can see, looking through incident commander, writing an RCA for 9 a.m. review. Much more explicit what we're doing. Task, turn the notes below into an RCA. Output, this is how I want my output to look. I want impact, timeline, root cause, action items, boom, 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 boom. And then I can give it some notes if I need to. But we just took this from an 8 on the clear scale to to 22. So this below this down here sets to 22. If we look at it, we're giving we're able to explicit. We're much more explicit. We're much more much more clear with it, and so we're able to see what it goes, what it does, and then okay. Okay, and then I'm gonna run one more piece here. Oops, I'm not gonna run these because we don't need to. Let me get this bad boy over here a little bit, and then we can put this on here. Okay, and I'm going to do Kate's analyzer. Let's see. Okay, actually, that was the wrong one. So okay, but yeah, so we should see, it should be a whole lot, better. So once we see where that's through, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm in the kind of the wrong space here, but okay, that's what's going on. And so this job, I'm going to change. You can see we have a fairly long Copilot instructions file. I wanted to take a look at the instructions file. And I'm going to run it against the instructions file right now. So let's go back here. Kate's analyzer. Where did it go? There we go. Minus min score. So I can actually then Let me just copy this part so that we don't have to follow there. So boom, Kate's analyzers. Minimum score 85 is what I want it to be. Fail on criticals and highs and require at least level 1. So there's levels of the Kate's analyzer. So you can see now we're able to see, okay, similar information to what we saw earlier, but we don't want to, we're not going to hold off on, so you can run it and say, this is not going to work, or you can run it as your CI gate in your process. And so as you're going through. And so I'm going to go ahead now and get to the slide deck, and then we'll get to some questions. So today, I want to make it concrete, kind of, what you want to do. So your next steps, is to start to think about the save your rewrites in your scores, push your prompt MD to a, you want to share those reusable files across your organization. So today, do that, save your rewrites in the scores, push your, push that to your prompt MD, to your files, do something and score it. So, run this 7-day challenge. We have, I'll add that to the description here in a little bit, but, next month, roll out the team library using, the 30-day plan. I'll show that in a few minutes as well. You want to use that verbatim. And then email your manager some of the different pieces. This is going to help you, figure out how to, how you're doing, like how you're doing over time. And then, like I said, that's the 7. Okay. And so, that's the workshop. We've got about 9 minutes left here. I'll go into the chat here. So get more out of less together. If you have questions, please feel free to, I'll take questions now. Let's see, let me go find the chat here real quick while I have that up. Okay. And then tab. Okay. See, okay, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for the session. Beautiful day to everyone from Nigeria, Delta State. Hello from New York City. If I didn't say that earlier, nice to see people from Nigeria. That's a long ways away from New York City. Please request Todd maximize the window. We did that. Awesome. Check out the analyzer repo here. So do we have anybody have any questions? Anything we can add to to what's going on, what we talked about today? If not, I mean, that means I either explained it really poorly or really well. And so, if you don't have any questions, we appreciate your time. I'll share some of the links that we have here. All this information is also going to be shared for our in our organization. We'll have a website that you can grab all the like 30-day plan, the 7-day plan, what to do with your managers, talk about it. Let's see. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to your account team and such. If you have one, that you should be able to, they should be able to help, guide you in the right direction. If not, to help you get you to the right people. We also have a number of resources on the Reactor page. So there's, we have a couple of deliveries that we've done there. There's actually me, with our budgets and an optimizations one as well. So if you have deeper questions or something that you need to work on, that you want, or if you want to get further information, we have a lot of that. Oops, let's go back. Okay, so this is the end of the end of the slides. Let me make sure I'm all good with, since we're not having any questions, let me make sure I'm all good with the at the end here, so we can see. Yeah, so I'll share this in the chat just so everybody has that. I guess I got to join the chat, huh? Oops. Okay, no problem. I got a few things. Any questions while we're still here? If not, we can get back 5 minutes. 5 minutes of the day. Oops. Wrong one. Turned on Teams on accident. All right. So I think we're good. I think it was Molly. Oops. Okay, so there we go.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.